Before we start, viewer discretion is strongly advised. What you're about to hear is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the exact federal courtroom testimony from Day 17 of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press. And on this day, a name came up no one saw coming. George Clooney. Yeah, that George Clooney. Hollywood A-lister, global humanitarian, face of justice. He wasn't there to talk movies or politics. He came to pull back the curtain on a hidden world of fame. World most of us were never meant to see. Clooney's testimony? Shocking, disturbing, unforgettable. He talked about an underground network, a secret cave beneath a world-famous theme park, and parties involving people known only as nuggets. Human beings with no arms, no legs, treated like party favors, all hidden behind a culture of silence, intimidation, and power. He said he never took part in the rituals, but he stayed quiet for years. Why? Fear. Fear of losing everything. What he shared? It froze the courtroom. And it might just change how we see celebrities forever. The room was tense, still. You could feel the air tighten when the judge called the next witness. Most people expected a music exec. Maybe someone low profile from Diddy's past. No one expected George Clooney. As the courtroom doors opened, a wave of whispers rolled through the gallery. There he stood, wearing a dark suit, eyes down, expression stone cold. Even the court stenographer hesitated. George Clooney, Hollywood royalty, the man who speaks at the UN. Now here to testify against Sean Diddy Combs. He walked to the stand slowly, no eye contact with Diddy, hands steady, jaw clenched. "I never imagined I'd be here," he said. His voice was low but steady. "But I've seen things, and I can't stay quiet anymore." Clooney explained how he was first welcomed into Diddy's world over a decade ago. At first, it was just parties, retreats, exclusive, elite stuff. It felt like being invited into some secret club. "When Diddy calls, you show up," Clooney said. "That's how it works in our world." But things changed in 2013. That's when he got an envelope. No return address, just a blank card with GPS coordinates and a time, 2 a.m. He thought it was a joke. Then came a text from an unknown number. "Follow the coordinates, wear black, no phone." He was curious, more than he was cautious. So he went, driven in a black SUV, through back alleys and industrial areas. They ended up in the parking structure of a major theme park. One he wouldn't name, but one that millions of families visit every year. Then came the cave. "I've never looked at Hollywood the same since," Clooney said. The courtroom leaned in, breathless. He described being led through a staff-only door, down a concrete tunnel, flickering lights overhead, checkpoint after checkpoint. The guards weren't your typical muscle. "They weren't bodyguards," Clooney said. "They were something else, cold, efficient, and they already knew who I was." At the end of the tunnel, a giant metal door. It hissed open. Behind it, a chamber, huge, carved into the earth. Inside, Clooney saw celebrities, politicians, athletes, all wearing luxury robes, sipping from gold-plated cups. But that wasn't what haunted him. It was the nuggets. They had no arms, no legs, Clooney said quietly. Some were in wheelchairs. Some just sat on pillows. They called them nuggets like it was no big deal. And they weren't just there to watch. They were part of it. I asked someone, "What was going on?" Clooney said. They laughed, told me, "Don't worry." They volunteered. "It's part of the fun." But it didn't feel like fun. It felt wrong. Before anyone could go deeper, Clooney said, they were forced to sign a thick NDA. Enforced not by lawyers, but by a private intelligence firm. If you didn't sign, you didn't go in. That's how they got everyone. Clooney refused. Instead, they took him to a lounge, behind glass. And from there, he watched. What he saw still haunts him. People I once admired, acting like animals. And those nuggets, they weren't guests. They were being passed around like props. When the judge asked if he ever joined in, Clooney was clear. No, never. I stayed in that lounge. I drank my whiskey. I left. But that wasn't the end. There were more invites, more locations, more caves, all of it, traced back to Diddy. I didn't speak up, Clooney admitted, because silence felt like survival, but silence is what kept this alive. He sat up straight, his face like stone, hands shaking, eyes heavy with truth. And just like that, the courtroom knew this wasn't just a celebrity scandal. It was the beginning of something much darker. After Clooney refused to return to the cave, he thought it was over. I thought I was out, he said. But in Hollywood, nothing ends clean. Walking away from Diddy wasn't just about one man. You were walking away from protection, from power, from your whole career. That's when things started to shift. Phone calls weren't returned. Projects that had been approved were suddenly canceled. A director he'd worked with for years backed out of a major deal. No explanation. No one said, "It was Diddy," but the silence was loud. "It was like a cloud was following me," Clooney said. "I was still George Clooney, but there was an invisible hand pulling the strings." What haunted him more was what happened to others. He described another actor, a huge name, who confided in him after attending one of Diddy's cave events. The actor had stayed too long, saw too much, and spoke to the wrong person. A week later, false accusations started showing up in tabloids. Within months, their career was over. "It was too coordinated to be coincidence," Clooney said. "They don't destroy you with violence. They destroy you with silence, with whispers, with scandal." Clooney said he kept a journal during that time. He documented every shady phone call, every canceled deal, even calls from PR firms telling him to distance himself from certain people. He handed that journal over to the court. But the most haunting moment came when Clooney admitted why he stayed close to Diddy even after what he saw. "I was scared," he said, "not of getting hurt, of being exiled. In this business, fame is oxygen, and they control the air." He paused. "There were nights I'd be at a gala or a premiere, and Diddy would just appear out of nowhere. He'd hug me, smile for the cameras, whisper in my ear, 'Still part of the family, right?' And I'd nod, because saying no out loud in front of all those people, I couldn't do it." The courtroom was silent. "I never did what they did," Clooney said. "But I stayed close. And that haunts me every day." His jaw tightened as the prosecutor asked, "Who else was there?" Clooney hesitated, then looked across the room. "I won't say names on the record," he said. "But if the court demands it privately, I'll hand over the list." The judge nodded. "These weren't just washed-up actors or wannabes," Clooney continued. "I saw billionaires, Oscar winners, tech moguls, even elected officials. People whose entire brand is based on being good, clean, and honest. And they were all there, in robes, in masks, laughing, drinking, signing NDAs like it was just another night out." The courtroom stirred. "What made these parties so dangerous," he said, "wasn't just what happened. It was who was watching. Everyone there saw each other. That's what kept it quiet. If you spoke out, it wasn't just your secret you were risking. It was theirs too. Mutual destruction." Then he told the court about a producer, a powerful man who met with him for lunch, weeks after the cave visit. In the middle of the meal, he casually joked about nuggets, smiling like it was an inside joke. "That's when I realized," Clooney said, "this wasn't a secret. It was an institution. He said celebrities didn't get lured in with threats. They got pulled in with promises of power, relevance, and access to what he called the true social pyramid of fame. The courtroom gasped when Clooney mentioned something he'd seen at the cave entrance: a guest book, a literal, bound ledger. Everyone who entered had to sign. He didn't sign, but he remembered the names above his, names that would shock every American household. "I've kept this quiet too long," he said, his voice shaking. "Not because I'm guilty, but because I was afraid of being erased." He looked straight at the jury. "That's what happens when you talk. You vanish. You become a headline for a week. Then your career disappears." He took a breath. "But I'm 63. I've won everything I need to win. What I haven't done is tell the truth about what I saw, who was there, and why it matters." Then, for the first time, he turned his eyes to Diddy, and he was always there, smiling, watching, like a king in his cave. Then Clooney reached into a small leather folder his legal team had placed beside him. With shaking hands, he pulled out a sealed manila envelope and placed it on the witness stand. "I debated for years whether to open this," he said. "And when I finally did, it changed everything," he explained. Back in 2017, while staying at a remote lake house far from LA, he found this envelope under his door. No note, no name, just a black wax seal, stamped with the letter P. "That lake house was my sanctuary," Clooney said. "But the past always finds a way back in." Inside were 6 glossy photographs, and he brought them to court. Only one had been shown so far. One of the photos was approved for display. Clooney described it: a dimly lit shot taken inside the underground cave. Grainy but unmistakable. A circle of well-known celebrities gathered around what looked like a sunken stage. In the center of that stage, on a red pillow, sat a single figure, a nugget. No arms, no legs. Blindfolded. "The image shook me," Clooney said, his voice cracking. "Not just because of what it showed, but because of who I recognized sitting closest to the nugget. Someone I'd worked with, someone America idolized." He wouldn't say the name aloud, but he handed the photo to the judge under seal. "This wasn't a prank," Clooney said. "It wasn't photoshopped. It was real. And whoever sent it to me wanted me to understand. It was time to choose a side, silence or exposure." That, he said, was the breaking point. He contacted a lawyer, wrote a sworn affidavit, and locked away everything in a private vault. "I started thinking about my family," he said. "My wife, my kids. What kind of man I was if I just let this go." In the years since, Clooney said he'd been approached twice. Once at a charity gala, once outside a film premiere. Each time, a stranger handed him a note. Both read, "Only still watching." He kept them. The prosecutor asked if he feared for his safety. "Absolutely," Clooney said. "But I'm more afraid of what happens if no one talks." He scanned the courtroom again. This case isn't just about one man's crimes. It's about a system built on silence. And today, I'm breaking mine. Clooney leaned forward, voice low and steady now, almost like a secret. "I want this court to understand. This wasn't just a cave. It was an operation, designed, engineered, hidden in plain sight. The entrance," he explained, "wasn't under some far-off bunker or abandoned factory. It was built, strategically, beneath one of the busiest, most family-friendly theme parks in the world." He wouldn't name it, but he emphasized, "Millions of people walk right past the entrance every year. It's so close to normal life. It's practically mocking it." Clooney then described what he remembered from the one time he went inside. It started with a freight elevator, tucked away behind a maintenance tunnel. No lights, no signs. Once inside, it dropped for almost a full minute. No one spoke. It felt like we were being lowered into another world, Clooney said. And that's exactly what it was. He worked with his attorney to sketch a basic layout for the court. A long central corridor lined with soundproof rooms, each one marked only with a single symbol. At the far end, the circle. A massive, dome-shaped chamber. Mirrored walls, velvet floors. This is where the nugget parties were held. Everything about it was ritualized, he said. There were rules. There were rotations. No one questioned anything. Because if you were there, you were already compromised. There was only one rule inside the circle. No names. Everyone wore masks, some looking like animals, others distorted human faces. Some guests arrived already dressed in robes. Others changed on site. A private security force, ex-military, watched every room, but they didn't intervene. They weren't there to keep the law, Clooney said. They were part of it. Then came one of the darkest revelations yet. A glass recording booth, perched high above the chamber, tinted windows, red lights blinking. Someone was always in that room, Clooney said. We didn't know who, but we knew we were being watched and recorded. The courtroom fell silent. You think Hollywood makes movies about secret societies for fun? Clooney paused. They're not just stories. Then, as he stared at his own hands, his voice dropped even lower. There's something I've never told anyone, he said. Not my wife, not my lawyer, not even my closest friends. He took a breath. There was one night. The circle broke its own rules. It happened around 2015. He said the invite came differently that time. No NDA, no long briefings. Just a black card embossed in silver. Only the initiated. He hadn't planned to go. But a trusted producer insisted, told him, everything's changing, so Clooney went. But this time, the energy was off, tense. No laughter, no casual indulgence. Diddy arrived late, dressed in all white, flanked by two men with shaved heads and dark glasses. Clooney had never seen them before, and no one spoke to them. The room was already in motion. Masked celebrities moving like shadows. Nuggets presented on velvet cushions. Soft, ambient music echoing through the walls. Then Diddy raised a hand, and the room went silent. He stood in the center, lifted a glass, and said, "Tonight, we prove who belongs." The lights dimmed. The red booth above them flickered to life. And then, for the first time ever, a voice echoed from the booth, a distorted electronic tone. "Begin the choosing." Clooney said what followed was the most disturbing moment of his life. A group of guests, blindfolded, trembling, were escorted into the circle. Some were celebrities. Others, he didn't recognize. One by one, the voice asked them questions. If they answered wrong, or refused to answer at all, they were escorted out one by one through a side door, a hallway that led somewhere no one ever returned from. "I don't know what happened to them," Clooney admitted. "All I know is that within weeks, 3 people I recognized that night vanished from the public eye." He said he tried to leave midway through the evening, but a guard blocked the corridor. "Mr. Camise said you should stay," the man whispered. "You're on the list." Clooney looked down, jaw tight. "I felt like a prisoner," he told the court. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just a twisted party. It was a loyalty test, and I passed it. Only because I stayed still and silent. He paused, but my soul didn't. George Clooney shifted in his seat. His voice came slower now, heavier. After that night, I made a decision. I'd never go back. But leaving wasn't enough anymore. I had to dismantle the mythology around him, around all of them. He started exposing the invisible armor of the industry, how it protects its own, Not just with contracts or NDAs, but with favors, roles, press coverage. If you play the game, your mistakes disappear. Clooney described the silent protection racket. Publicists, studios, PR firms, all working together to keep Diddy's name shining, even as rumors darkened around the edges. Watched people try to step away, he said. They'd vanish. From headlines, from bookings, from relevance. He remembered Cannes 2016, a young actor, someone he'd mentored, pulled him aside. Trembling. They tried to get me into the cave, the actor said. I told them no. Now my agent won't return my calls. Within 6 months, the kid's career was over, not for lack of talent, but because he said no to a handshake that was never supposed to be spoken of. Clooney admitted his own guilt. I stayed quiet for years. I accepted the protection. I nodded in the background because I was scared. He looked straight ahead. Scared of being blacklisted, scared of being digitally erased. But more than that, I was scared of who I'd have to become if I stayed in. He spent years collecting fragments, guest lists, invitations, photos that were never posted, receipts for charities set up just outside the theme park. Everything. I kept it all. Not to destroy anyone, to protect myself, just in case. Then, Clooney turned toward the press, eyes fixed on the cameras. You all know the industry's broken, but no one wanted to say it. Because Diddy isn't the disease, he's the symptom. The real sickness is silence. He paused. And silence is how monsters thrive. The room was still. Clooney wasn't just testifying anymore. He was confessing. He leaned forward again, both hands gripping the edge of the witness stand like he was holding himself in place. I have one last thing to share, he said. Something that's haunted me since the day it arrived. In late 2019, just before the world shut down, a package showed up at Clooney's LA home. No return address, no stamp, just his name, written in delicate cursive. That was the first red flag, he said. No one knew I was back in LA, not even my agent. Inside the package was a flash drive, unmarked. Clooney brought the contents to court under seal. But what he saw, alone, that night, in his study, he would never forget. It was surveillance. Footage, he said. From inside the cave. The courtroom tensed. Grainy. Time-stamped. No sound. Just black and white video of that red velvet chamber. A rotating overhead camera swept across the circle. Masked figures stepped forward, one at a time. In the center, again, was a nugget, motionless, displayed like a centerpiece. Clooney looked down, then said, and then Diddy entered. He walked to the center, removed his mask, and stared directly into the camera, like he knew. Then he raised a glass, smiled, and whispered something. I couldn't hear it, Clooney said, but I could feel it. The clip ended, no edits, no glitches, just a slow, silent record of ritual. Clooney played it again, and again, and again. Then he destroyed the drive. But not before I made copies, he said, because that drive was never meant for me. It was a threat. The message was clear. We know you were there. We know you watched. And now, we're watching you. He hired private security, moved his children out of the country for 6 months, turned down film after film. I went dark, he said, because when you really say no to the circle, they don't forget you. They remind you. The prosecutor asked if he feared retaliation for testifying. Of course I do, Clooney said. But I'm more afraid of what happens if we don't talk. If we all just keep clapping at award shows, pretending this world isn't built on blood. He took one long breath, then looked the jury in the eye. I may never make another movie after this. I might lose everything, but I'll finally be able to